So it started out as a vlog, me sharing just a couple thoughts about youth ministry, but now it's turned into a podcast. Here's why in this episode of the Youth Worker Daily. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Youth Worker Daily. My name is Jay Higham, and here at the Youth Worker Daily, it is our goal to encourage youth workers just like you with tools, tips, resources, and helps so that you thrive in your ministry. So this is a different episode as I'm actually going to go backwards and make this episode 1, even though it's coming out after episode 6. But I wanted to tell a little bit of why the podcast has gotten started and kind of what some of my hopes are as we launch this podcast and try to do something I think is different. I haven't seen any other podcasts like this, at least that I'm aware of. But kind of just give you a little background and some history and an invitation to join us here on the podcast. First off, a little bit about me. My name is Jay Higham. I've been in student ministry for about almost 30 years now in volunteer, part-time, full-time roles. I have worked in Christian camping and really with the exception of a small season of time when I was part of a church plant, my career has been focused on serving students and their families in student ministry. And I can honestly say that it is my ministry passion. There's nothing else that gets me as excited about ministry as when I start thinking about students and seeing them being discipled and cared for, growing in Christ, their families being impacted and changed, and it's what I love to do, and I am grateful that God has called me into this great opportunity and for it to become a career. Coming into year 29, almost 30 years of doing student ministry, and it's just exciting and thrilling. A number of years ago, kind of hitting that 12-year mark, I think it was. Maybe it was a little earlier than that. Maybe it was around the 10-year mark. Really kind of hitting my a space and time in ministry where I wanted to start giving back to other youth workers and student ministry groups. Was able to go and be a part of the National Youth Worker Convention as a volunteer, and really kind of sensed God wanting something a little bit more from me. One of the things that really impressed me and got me excited after being at the National Youth Workers Convention many years ago as a volunteer was the opportunity I had to talk with youth workers, to talk ministry with youth workers, to hear their stories, to hear what God was doing with their students and in their ministry. And I found that those stories got me excited about youth ministry. It gave me kind of fresh ideas. It gave me some new approaches, and it really helped me understand the needs of students in the ministry, and was kind of like fuel for me to really pour into what God was calling me to do. And found that I was looking forward to returning to the National Youth Workers Convention year after year so that I could hear more of their stories. So I could follow up with some of the guys that I was meeting and working with and hear what God was continuing to do in their ministries, but also to meet other youth workers and to hear what God was doing in their stories. And I can't remember which National Youth Workers Convention it was, but I remember driving home after one of the conventions, and I was thinking to myself, it'd be really cool if someone could just go around and talk with youth workers, record their stories, what God's doing in their ministry, and create a show, whether it was a video program or a podcast or a blog, whatever, but create something that then allowed for those stories to be shared and for other youth workers to kind of get a glimpse into seeing what God was doing in the ministries around the country. And I really wanted to pitch that idea to, at the time, Youth Specialties, or, Group, or, one of the other publishing companies that were out there providing resources for youth workers. But frankly and honestly, I was just too afraid, too scared to step out on that branch and to share that idea. And so just kind of remember wrestling for a number of years after that, wondering and asking myself, what would it be like to get out there and do that? And then sometime around 2000, I don't know, maybe 2011, 2012, started really getting active in blogging and sharing ministry stuff, as well as life and ministry things. And it was kind of just a hobby. Got a chance to write a few blog posts for some other organizations, YM360, Youth Specialties on their blog, and a few other locations. And really found it was a lot of fun to just to encourage other youth workers. But this idea of stories and sharing stories was an idea that just never went away. And so I guess it really wasn't until recently, about 2 years ago, I finally got enough courage to say, you know what, I'm going to put together a vlog. And this vlog is going to be me starting to share my story, things that I was learning, things that I was doing, resources that I found super helpful, experiences that I thought were super encouraging. And I started just doing these 10, 12-minute vlogs on YouTube, created a channel, created a website, renamed it, rebranded a couple times until I really kind of found the name and the branding that fit. But got close to like 70 some episodes over the course of 2 years. And all of a sudden, that feeling of sharing stories, that idea came back, and I wanted to embrace that. And, at the time when all this is getting started and being launched, we are coming into 3 months of the coronavirus shutdowns, where everybody was sequestered to their homes. Stay-at-home orders were issued. Pretty much the nation was shutting down for this virus, and it was about, I don't know, 8 weeks in. And I was doing a few more vlogs. I was struggling with my own student ministry, trying to keep it fresh and creative, and doing the whole online thing. And I just started thinking, I really want to know what other youth workers are doing. I'm seeing what's happening on social media. I'm watching other youth groups do their thing online, and I'm wondering, really, what's the honest thoughts to all of this? And so I put out on Twitter, hey, anybody want to share anything that they're doing, learning, experiencing, struggling with during the COVID-19 season? And 2 guys responded back, and had a conversation with them, and hoping to get a quick little vlog episode out of it. But the conversations both went almost an hour. They were incredible conversations, and I found myself being encouraged by listening to what God was doing with these youth workers in their ministry in the midst of COVID-19. And when I finally put together the videos were way too long for anybody to watch, but they're still on the YouTube channel if you want to go see them. But they made for a great podcast. And so right after I finished posting the second one, I said, you know what, this has to go somewhere else. And went over to Podbean, and I had an account with them from a time when I was posting some of my sermons and some other youth ministry stuff. Reopened my accounts, went and took the step of actually getting a subscription so that we could post podcasts for a year, and started sharing those. I shared those 2 posts, and they're out of order. If you go to the Podbean site, episode 3 comes before episode 2, even though episode 2 actually was recorded first. But that actually is what launched what we're doing now: conversations with everyday youth workers. When I rebranded the blog, I called it the Youth Worker Daily. And the plan was to post daily tips, resources, tools, words of encouragement for youth workers that they could check in every single day and get something hopefully helpful for them. And I branded it as, for the everyday youth worker. Realizing, I haven't published a book. I'm not a national speaker. I don't lecture or do seminars. I barely speak to students outside of my own group. But just this desire to have youth workers share their stories is what's driving this. And so we deemed the podcast Conversations with Everyday Youth Workers. And that's really what I'm intending to do, is to meet up with youth workers who haven't written books, aren't doing blogs or podcasts, although sometimes we will include those folks as well, because they are still youth workers, but to really just, take a walk through the local community and find those youth workers who are doing incredible ministry right where God has planted them, and to give them an opportunity to share their voice, to share their stories, to share what God is doing, all with the hopes of encouraging other youth workers. Because one of the things I have found in all my years of being a part of networks and talking and meeting with youth workers, there is something about the stories that they share that are just encouraging, invigorating, and just get me excited about student ministry. And that's really what I hope to do with this podcast, is to connect with youth workers from all walks of life, all areas of the country, all different sizes of youth groups, and just hear the things that God is doing in and through their ministry. And then sharing that and posting it as an opportunity for us to grow as youth workers, to be encouraged as youth workers, to be challenged as youth workers. And as we get into this first season of these podcasts, I think we have enough interviews lined up that we might get as many as 15 episodes out of this first season. But my hope really is that as you guys listen in, you are being encouraged as youth workers share their own experiences and the things that God's been doing in and through them, that hopefully you will have a chance to grow a little bit, to be challenged a little bit, to be encouraged, and that together we will all just be better youth workers because of it. And so I wanted to just share kind of a little bit of that part of my story with you, just as we move in further and further with the podcast here. And right now we're still running it as both a video, a vlog, and as a podcast. I don't know if the video side of it will continue. We'll probably go back to doing the short 10-minute posts for video, but really try to make the podcast a weekly venture, hearing from all sorts of different youth workers in different locations. So that's kind of what this is all about. So if you're stumbling through and you find the Youth Worker Daily or the podcast Conversations with Everyday Youth Workers, this is what we're doing. This is why we're here. This is my hopes of encouraging youth workers, and I really hope that you enjoy the podcast. I hope you enjoy the conversations that we share. I think the neat thing here is when I say, it's a conversation with the everyday youth worker, whether if you do have a book out, if you don't have a book out, it doesn't matter. You're still a youth worker, and you still have a story to share. And those are the things that we're going to be posting here on the podcast. So occasionally you might find a name that might be a little bit more recognizable. But for the most part, we're looking for just the everyday youth worker. And so with that, let me extend to you a invitation to be a guest on the podcast. I said at the end of one of the podcasts that have aired, you don't have to have any other recommendations other than being a youth worker. And we would love to have you as a guest. And that is true. So if you are working with students, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have you on the show. We'd love to hear your story, and we'd love to put it out there for other youth workers to hear. And you can do that, frankly, very easily by simply just emailing us at theyouthworkerdaily theyouthworkerdaily@gmail.com, theyouthworkerdaily@gmail.com, or you can go and visit our website, theyouthworkerdaily.com, and there'll be links for you to reach out to me, and we can set things up. You can also hit me on Twitter or on Instagram. Just message us and say that you'd love to be a guest. Maybe share where you're from, and I'll follow up with you and see if we can't set up an interview over Zoom. And we'll have some fun doing all of this. All our social media handles are the same. It's YTH Worker Daily. So it's going to be easy to find us. It's Youth Worker Daily, YTH Worker Daily. But that's it, guys. That's what this podcast is all about. This is what we're trying to do with it. It's not professional. I'm doing the best I can to have at least good camera quality. We just got a new microphone to improve our sound quality. But it's grassroots, friends. It's going back to simple and the basic, and trying to just have some fun while we're meeting and connecting with youth workers. So thanks so much for watching. Really would appreciate if you would go ahead and rate us, because apparently the ratings are super important for helping people find the podcast. So if you're on iTunes, would you take a moment to rate the podcast, and maybe share it with another youth worker and encourage them to listen and to rate it. We're currently only on iTunes and Podbean, so those are the two best places to do it. Or you can visit us at the website, where we post the audio and the video, along with some companion blog information. It's, providing links and other resources that you can check out based on who our guests are. And again, you can find us there at theyouthworkerdaily.com. So thank you for giving me a chance to kind of share a little bit of my story and some of the things that we're hoping to do with the podcast. And we would love to hear from you. So even if you're not ready to be a guest, reach out. Let us know that you're out there and you're listening. And we would just love to know that you're there. And if we can be an encouragement to you, that would be fantastic. And totally make all of this well worth it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me in this episode. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. See, now we have a podcast. I have to keep remembering to say listening, because generally we've always just had the video and it's always been watching. But thank you, whether you're watching or whether you're listening. And we hope that you will take a few minutes to tune in next time right here on the Youth Worker Daily.